Now, this meeting of the Fox River Valley Public Library District Board of Trustees will be held without a quorum of trustees physically present, but is authorized by the Governor of Illinois pursuant to COVID-19 Executive Order number 5 dated March 16th, 2020, as well as the Governor's Emergency Administrative Act dated June 12th, 2020. As board president, I have determined that an in-person meeting is not prudent at this time due to the coronavirus pandemic that the governor has declared an emergency. A verbatim recording of this meeting will be made available to the public. In addition, Library Director Lauren Rosenthal is physically present at the library for this meeting. Also, an additional public notice. Due to the current public health concerns and extension of the governor's stay-at-home mandate by Executive Order 2020-33, this meeting is being conducted electronically. Anyone wishing to observe and/or comment must email Library Board at Fox River Valley Public Library District.info no later than 12 p.m. on Tuesday, October 20th, and will receive online access to the meeting. If you do not have electronic access and would like to make a public statement, you can call the library at 844-228-3661 before 5 p.m. on Tuesday, October 20th, and leave a message indicating that you would like your message to be read into the record during the public comment section of the meeting. A recording of this meeting will be available on the library's website by Friday, October 30th. And with that, I would like to call to order the Fox River Valley Public Library District Board of Trustees meeting of October 20th, 2020 at 7:02 p.m. May we have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Can we have our flag put up?
Oh my gosh, right now Chris looked like she had Dave's head. It was Chris's body and Dave's head on my screen.
There we are. Okay, if everyone will repeat, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Nikki, could we have a roll call, please?
Dave.
Here.
Chris. Chris, Chris, you got an audio.
Unmute, Chris.
Try, does the space bar work? Holding the space bar? I'll come back to her. Mike?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Nikki here. Christina? Here. Richard?
Here.
So, okay,
Okay,
Chris,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
So all trustees are present?
Correct.
Okay. Public comments. The board recognizes its responsibility to provide opportunity for anyone wishing to comment at any meeting to do so. Due to current public health concerns, the October 2020 meeting will be conducted electronically. Any person viewing the meeting online and are wishing to comment will be accommodated in accordance with the public notice I detailed before. Citizens will not be requested to sign in order to comment. Is there anyone out there that's online with us that would like to make a public comment? Lauren, has anyone left a telephone message that they would like read into the record?
No.
Okay, so no, there are no public comments tonight. We'll move on to the president's report. First order of business, as we all know, Lauren is leaving us for the director's position at the Ela Area Public Library in Lake Zurich, effective December 11th. We're truly sorry to see her leave, but at the same time recognize that this is a great career opportunity for her, and that library is literally minutes from her home. She'll be with us for another 6 or 7 weeks, and I'll have some more comments to make about her tenure here and some of the things that she's accomplished. We'll do that next month. But anyway, for now, Lauren, congratulations. We hate to see you go, understand the reasons, and thank you for the great job that you've done for us.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very nice.
Second item, as I reported in an email about a week or so ago, the Park District has agreed to extend our lease at the rec center for another 5 years. And that's great news. We can continue on with our West Side presence. Mike, I understand you were at that meeting or attended that meeting. Do you have any comments about what the board's thoughts were in extending our lease or anything about that?
There seemed to be a universal support. The only question they posed to me was how much of an overlay there was between the Park District and the Library District. There was some question about whether Gilbert's played a role, and I said, well, the lion's share of the Library District mirrors the Park District, and they seem to be satisfied with that answer. Okay,
so as I understand it, when it gets time for lease renewal, that they will work on a new intergovernmental agreement, and that'll nail this thing down positively. But it's a go, and I think that's a positive for us. Last month, if you remember, we passed a vote to make November 3rd, Election Day, a paid holiday for our employees, since the governor had asked that all governmental buildings be closed. And in that, there was a provision that there was a lawsuit down in Sangamon County that dealt with this matter, and that we would proceed with that unless something happened with that lawsuit. Well, it has, and I'll let Lauren explain exactly what it is in her report, but there is a change to that. That's all I have for President's report. Let's turn now to the Director's report. Lauren?
Okay, thanks. Let's start off with Ann Van Voren. She's our auditor here from Lauterbach and Amon, gonna talk to us a little bit about the results of the CAF. So Ann, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. Are you ready for me to give my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, sorry. So thanks for having me again. My name is Ann Van Voren. I'm a principal with Lauterbach and Amon. And I will just briefly kind of walk through the CAFR report, which everyone I believe should either have the hard copy or a PDF version of it in front of them. So first is I'll just talk, there was just one management letter comment that we issued for the fiscal year. There was just one fund that was over budget. The FICA fund was over budget, and so just part of our firm policy is that we always just put that in the management letter of any funds that are over budget, just so the board is aware of that happening during the fiscal year. And then next, I'll just kind of walk through the comprehensive annual financial report. So this is a CAFR report. So there's three main sections of the report. The first is the introductory section, where we to have the transmittal letter to the readers of the financial statements, as well as the prior year certificate of achievement. The library first submitted to this program in fiscal year 2017. You'll see on page 15 that the prior year, fiscal year 2019, was also awarded the certificate. And we have all hopes of submitting all process in place to submit the report for fiscal year 2020 to the program, and all hopes that the library will be awarded again that achievement. Then the next section is the financial section, which is kind of the bulk of the report. Page 16 is the audit opinion, and we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best that we can issue as auditors. This just means that everything was materially correct, and all of the internal controls that we tested throughout our process were also sound. Page 18 is the management discussion and analysis. This is, I think, probably the most important and easiest part of the report to read and understand. It's about 10 pages. It gives a good summary of what happened during the fiscal year and then comparing to the prior fiscal year as well. There's also some charts and graphs for anyone visual reader, so they can see what happened during the fiscal year. Page 25 starts the full accrual financial statements. So these include your long-term debt and the capital assets of the library. The governmental activities increased $354,000. And this increase was mostly due to increase in property taxes and interest for the library. Page 28 is the fund level financial statements. So these will be the meat of the financial statements without including any of the capital assets or long-term debt. So the general fund that had increased $703,000, again, due to property taxes and interest also increasing. And then we also did see some lower expenditures because the library closed at the end of March due to the COVID-19 governor shutdown. Special reserve fund also increased. This was about $40,000. And again, this was due just to the lower expenditures for the library having to close at the end of March. Page 32 are the notes to the financial statements. There's just a few that I'll highlight. Page 38 is the cash and investments note. So you'll be able to see the cash bank statements or investments statements that the library has and how much they have in each holding. Page 40 is the capital asset footnote. So this will tie back to the capital assets that are on the statement of activities. It'll show the detail of each of the categories as well as the depreciation for those categories. Page 41 are the long-term debt. The library has only two long-term debts that we consider, which are the compensated absences and then the net pension liability for IMRF. And then page 45 are those IMRF pension disclosures that show the change from the net pension liability from fiscal 19 to fiscal 20, as well as the deferred inflows and outflows. Page 55 is the budget, starts the budget to actual statements. So each fund will have its own statement, which will show the actual activity for the fiscal year, as well as comparing to the board approved budget for that for that fund.
And then, can I just real quick, yeah, just want to make sure the board's aware. When we talk about budget in this context with the CAFR, we're talking about the appropriation, not the working budget that you're used to seeing on the MonFin. Budget for the audit is always the appropriated amount. Sorry, just need to. Okay,
thank you. And then the last section of the comprehensive annual financial report is that statistical section. These are some, and that starts on page 61. So it's some nice 10-year trend information for the specific to the library related to financials, revenue, such as property taxes, if they had long-term debt, if you guys had long-term debt, those would be detailed there. Operating and then operating for the specific to the library. So it's nice 10-year trend, so the reader can see what's been happening as each year that the library issues a report. So that was kind of a quick summary of the reports and the financials that happened during the fiscal year. Be happy to answer any questions that anyone has about the reports or the audit process itself. I did want to thank Lauren real quick, as just it's been a great working with her for the last couple of years with the library, and just getting everything all wrapped up after field work and getting the report issued. So she's always great to work with and very efficient. So thank you.
And I did have some comments, Mike Tennis here.
Sure.
That I had suggested to Richard and Lauren. In the MD&A section, in particular on page 22.
Okay.
On the governmental activities, there's the second paragraph under governmental activities that discusses the changes in the revenue, and it's silent on the effect of impact fees. And I had suggested inclusion of impact fees since year over year, we're talking over $50,000. There was $53,000 in impact fees. And I felt while it's included in miscellaneous, so you see this miscellaneous at $75,800 some dollars versus $21,500 a year ago. $53,500 of that was impact fees. And I thought it would be appropriate and clear to readers if that was included in the discussion. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree that is significant. That is a important aspect to the report for the increase for the miscellaneous. I can work with Lauren tomorrow about getting anything updated in the report if we think that's necessary.
Okay, and secondly, the expense paragraph that follows that revenue paragraph on that same page, I had suggested pension expenses be included in that discussion, since pension expenses, if you go to pay to the pension expense note, you have over $250,000 in pension expense. Year over year, it's almost a $97,000 increase. And last year's note 4 under the deferred outflow had indicated that there was going to be a significant recognition of pension expense. In last year's report of about $212,000 was spelled out. So I believe that is the largest component of the expenses that are causing a reduction in the change in net position on page 22, and believe it should be incorporated. I have drafted language provided to Richard and Lauren, and certainly could provide it to you for discussion with Lauren as to how best to finalize that. I also indicated that in addition to pension expense, that the general fund expenditures, which are on page 55, indicate personnel and benefits were $1,895,000, up $53,000 from the prior year when you look back at the fiscal year 2019 report. So, and also in that $53,000 increase is current long-term compensating balance changes that increased $18,000 year over year. So I felt it was appropriate to comment on pensions and personnel and benefit costs as drivers of the change causing the increase in net position change to decrease year over year. I questioned the discussion that is currently drafted here talks about cumulative depreciation on page 22. Rather than discussing balance sheet accounts pertaining to accumulated depreciation, I think that will confuse the reader since it's really a balance sheet account. Note 3 on page 40 tells the reader fiscal year depreciation expense was $437,946. Note 3 on page 30, last year's report tells the reader in the text that the depreciation expense was $276,000 some dollars. That was a reporting error. The number in the text that was picked up was capital asset additions in the increased column, when it should have picked up the depreciation expense number in the accumulated depreciation. So when you compare year over year, depreciation expense actually went from $463,000 some dollars to $437,000, a decrease of $25,000 in the depreciation expense. So the language that's currently drafted here, I think it'll confuse the readers and needs to be modified. So would you like to take a look at that as well?
Sure. Yeah, I will discuss with Lauren to see how we can update those 2 paragraphs.
Now, in addition to that, there were a number of cleanup opportunities that could be addressed if there's going to be a change in the document. For example, in the transmittal section on page 12, on fiscal year 1920 statistics, bullet point 6 is a typo. The number 615,746, which follows the 44611, doesn't belong there. It's actually last year's number. In the MD&A section on page 21, under the last paragraph that talks about the unrestricted balance, unfortunately that number, 4.5 months of unrestricted balance, needs to be updated. That's last year's number, and it should be, I believe, 6.9 months of unrestricted balance. On page 52, there's a litany of assumptions related to the IMRF fund, and among that litany of assumptions is the investment rate of return, which is it shows 7.5%. The IMRF actually had a board resolution on December 1st of 2018 that was effective January 1st of 2019, reducing that from 7.50 to 7.25. Typo under the general revenue, interest is listed, but it's misspelled. And so those are the comments that I have to offer to enhance the document.
Okay, Lauren, you had responded to Mike about some of these things. Are there any of these suggestions that Mike has made that should not be put in, or are they all the kind that should be entered in to make this a more crisp, clean document?
The only thing that gives me pause is a focus on a year when we increased our fund balance by $700,000 and increased our net position by $350,000. both of which are very, very positive financial outcomes. To craft an MD&A with wording about pension and staffing costs as if they're a problem, that I'm I don't see why we would need to do that.
Well, I'm not sure I've been thinking about that. I'm not so sure it's listed as a problem, just a point of clarification. I don't think anybody looks at this and would suggest that there's a problem with our financial. You would not, Mike, would you?
No, absolutely not. Just wanted to clarify that when you start talking about government-wide financial analysis and you get into governmental activities, that is operating information that has an impact on the net position. And as such, the impact fees and the pension expenses, as well as some personnel costs, had an impact, especially the pensions. And it's just a matter of presenting the facts.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any comments on this discussion?
Brian, we can't hear you.
Hear me? Say again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My one question for Lauren was just confirmation that the exception that was pointed out on the FICA over budget last, we closed that fund though, so that's no longer an issue, right? That this was the last year that.
Unfortunately, because we ended the fiscal year with $20.99 still in the FICA fund, it still exists. So we have appropriated $20.99 to come out of the FICA fund in fiscal year 2021. So it will show up on next year's CAFR, but Lauterbach and Amon will close it out when they perform next year's audit.
Okay, so it lives this one more year because we started with the $20 balance.
Correct. But I verified that I did not make the same mistake with the IMRF fund this year, because I had thought we closed FICA last year and IMRF this year. We will close both FICA and IMRF this year, and I started with an appropriate, I started with the correct opening balance, and so the amount appropriated will, we're not going to go over budget this year in the IMRF fund like we did FICA.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question for Ann. Given the discussion we just about these various entries and so forth, do you see anything in there that we should incorporate these for clarity purposes? Do you see anything wrong with that?
Should not include them, or sorry, I missed that.
No, that we should include them for clarity purposes.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot that can be discussed on the financials. And so Lauren and I, when we worked on the MD&A together, these are the results that we thought were appropriate to discuss for the reader. But everyone sees the report differently, and they can say that, you know, find something else that maybe is also important to be addressed. So there, I mean, without making the MD&A very, very long to include every detail that happened, these were the highlights that we thought were important to include, and so that's why they were included in the final document in front of you today.
Okay, but for clarification purposes, and because the trustee has indicated that he thinks, you know, again, to make this thing easier and clearer for someone to read, that maybe they should be included. You're okay with that?
I mean, it's not necessarily my call to make. It's the board and Lauren's.
Yeah, I understand.
Sure.
I understand, but you don't see any reason why that shouldn't be done.
No.
Okay, then I would say let's incorporate it. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. Anything else on the presentation? Any other questions from the board members?
Just overall, well done from my point of view as with a financial background.
Yes,
Okay.
I've always been happy with Lauterbach and Amon.
Yeah, okay. Do we have anything else for Ann at this point? Ann, thank you for all the work you did in helping us with this, our annual report, and we look forward to working with you again.
Great. Thank you so much. It was great seeing everybody tonight.
Thank you,
Ann.
Ann. Bye. We'll talk tomorrow.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, so I'll continue with the director's report.
Yeah, please.
I had a couple notes I wanted to talk about. The first relates to what Richard had addressed, the holiday closing for Election Day on November 3rd. If you'll recall, at the October board meeting, the motion that was passed was the library is going to close and give holiday pay to staff unless, as a result of the lawsuit, that the library was not required to close per the governor's per the law that had passed. So the lawsuit said that it was never intended to be required for municipalities for beyond schools in Sangamon County. It didn't go so far as to say no, y'all can be. The opinion of our attorney is we can easily take that to mean we are not required to close. And since we didn't want to close anyway, this worked out fine. So I've already emailed managers. Managers have already done the schedules. We will be open on November 3rd so that we will be able to assist voters with finding their correct polling place, doing a ton of on Election Day. So everything that we did in October still stands. There was no requirement, to rescind anything, but happily we will stay open. So that was good news. The next thing I want to talk about was Kane County COVID. I don't know if you're aware that this afternoon the governor imposed restrictions on regions 7 and 8, and Kane County is bad. We're at 12 to some 14% positivity rates in the testing, and so restaurants starting Friday, restaurants are no longer allowed to have people dine inside. And so Heather, I consulted with Heather, who's been spearheading the safe reopening, and talked about what we should do, if anything, differently. And we're in agreement that we don't see any reason to change anything that's going on in the library at this point, because when we offered curbside service, that was a lovely thing to do in June when it was sunny until 9 o'clock at night. And it's dark at 5:30 now. So curbside is just from a staff safety standpoint gets a lot trickier. Add into it that it's getting colder, and that what we found is it's really hard not to get close to people when you're putting stuff in their cars. So we are of the opinion right now that it's easier to maintain social distancing with the libraries open. So even though the governor's changing the dining restrictions, that we are going to follow that our plan right now is to follow the retail guidelines. And as long as I can go into Kohl's and pick up a pair of pants, I can come into the library and pick up a book off the shelf. So we're continuing as is despite changes today. So any questions or concerns with that, sort of where we're at and where we're planning for the future? Okay. If the governor makes changes about retail, we will obviously be making some changes here, but that's all we feel we need to worry about right now. And the last thing I wanted to mention is we have gotten no confirmation from Kane County about our CARES Act reimbursements yet. So when we talk about those agenda items, I have no finalized IGA. I have no finalized amount of award. So that's my saddest news to report. But
Lauren, my only comment was going to be, I think if we were to fall back into like phase 3 of Restore Illinois, because I know we talk about this as a school district a lot too.
Sure.
I think the home delivery service that we have in place for the library, I think has worked out so beautifully. And I would hope that like that would still be something that we'd be able to continue.
100%. Unless people couldn't go out of their houses anymore, the delivery is staying. There's no
Right.
question. Yeah.
Right. So I think we talk as a school district a lot of times about how we're going to come out of this whole thing better in some ways than we did before we started. Like I like when I've heard you say before that that's just something that we should just do going forward, because I think that is a great service for patrons, right?
Yeah, we tried to do this as for homebound patrons, and the service never really got off the ground. And now that, I mean, there's simply no reason why we can't do it for everybody. We have the staff, we have the van. It doesn't take 20 people, 40 hours a week to do. It's very doable. So yeah, it is absolutely one of our permanent services.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's a really significant accomplishment that you guys achieved. So
Staff's great about it. So yeah.
Yep.
Are there any questions about the department reports or the dashboard? So that's all I got.
Anyone? Okay. All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. Before I ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda, are there any items that any trustee would like left off?
I had a item A1B I'd like to have left off.
Okay. Anything else? From anybody else? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items exhibit A1A, not A1B, A1A, A1C through A1K? May I have such a motion, please?
So move. Mike Tennis?
Mike Tennis, second, please.
Second, Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, second. Nikki, could we have a roll call, please?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
yes.
Nikki, yes, Christina,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the item that was left off, A1B?
Don't we discuss it?
Yes.
You got a motion first and then you discuss.
Yeah. So Mike Tennis made the motion. Can we have a second, please?
A second, it's Brian.
Right. Brian seconded.
The reason
Okay, Mike, what
Yes, the reason I wanted to discuss this, in the minutes under department reports and dashboard, that paragraph, the fourth line down, indicates, in part noting there had been no tax increase since the library inception 150 years ago. To avoid anybody challenging that statement, I would like to have, I think the intent was to insert following the words no tax rate increase approved by referendum. We certainly have had tax rate increases. So I just want to insert the words approved by referendum.
Okay.
Good. Makes sense.
Is that acceptable to everybody?
Yep.
Okay, then may we have a vote on that, on the amended minutes then for A1B as Mike had indicated. Nikki, can you take the vote, please?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nikki, yes, Christina,
Yes.
Mike, Richard.
How about me?
Didn't you? Oh, I said your name. Did it not come through? Richard.
Yeah, yes. All right, no unfinished business tonight. New business, Exhibit C1. Resolution to approving the intergovernmental agreement. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-08 approving the intergovernmental agreement with Kane County, allowing the Fox River Valley Public Library District as a subrecipient to receive requested funds up to $50,000 from the Federal CARES Act. May I have such a motion?
So moved, Brian.
Brian?
Nikki will second.
Nikki second. Okay, Lauren, why don't you go? We didn't get the official word from the county yet, so in effect, what we're going to be doing by this resolution is authorizing you to be a signer, to sign off on this once the county officially presents the IGA and the award.
Correct. And if the IGA that the county sends is materially different from what I've presented here, then we'll call a special meeting and the board can come back and weigh in on it. But if it's, you know, this was the draft IGA that the county had provided. So if it's basically the same thing, we only got $250,000 and it's first come, first served. So I don't want to have to wait, another month for a meeting.
Oh, so the IGA has to be approved before the county will approve the award?
One library heard back from the county that the money is going to go out. The money is expedited if you have the resolution done. That the first ones with the resolution done will be the first ones to get the money. Now, I don't know if that means, who knows what that means? This is the level of communication from Kane County has been, I wish we knew more.
Well, from looking over the material, I don't think they can complain at all with our records. I think every expense was well documented in that in this application.
Yes.
And I think it should stand anybody's review.
Hats off to Karin and Mary. Yep.
Yes, definitely. I agree, Mike Tennis.
Yeah, it's a lot of detail.
It's a lot of paperwork for 31 pages for 48,000.
The amount of pages was ridiculous to me. I'm like, is this thing ever going to end? Like, how many pages is this?
Yeah.
That's only the application. So once we get the IGA, we have to send them electronic copies of every purchase order, requisition, invoice, check copy. Mary has scanned all that in and ready to go. So we're just chomping at the bit to get the approval so that we can submit it all electronically and bring in the cash.
Well, I think it's job well done. Does anybody have any comments on this before we vote? Okay. Nikki, could we have a vote?
I don't know why I'm in the dark. I have no idea why. I'm in a bright room. So, Dave.
It's almost Halloween.
There you go. I'm a ghost. Yeah. Dave.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Nikki, yes. Christina.
Yes.
Richard.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Item C2. May I have a motion to adopt resolution 2020-09 to determine estimate of funds needed for fiscal year 2020-2021 in the amount of $3,650,000. May I have such a motion, please?
I move. Christina.
That
Who
was
was the
Dave that
second?
seconded.
Dave, second.
Thanks, Dave.
Dave seconded. Okay. I think it's pretty explanatory, but Lauren, why don't you just give a short overview of this thing once again?
Yeah. So I'm kind of an Excel geek, and one of my favorite things that I've done in the 7 years on this job is created this gigantic spreadsheet to with every tax rate we've had since 1981, and EAV since 1981, and I put in CPI once we get it, like once it's been announced, and so I'm able to predict really accurately what our once the county releases their estimated EAV report at the end of September, I'm able to predict really accurately what our anticipated revenues are going to be. So I think last year I was off $1,500 because in the end, usually the EAV is slightly less than what the estimated is. But so yeah, I mean, we're pretty much going to get $3,617,000 next year. That's it. If there were some increase in new construction, if we do an estimate of funds needed of $3,650, we've got a little bit of cushion in there, but it's still low enough that we're not going to need to do that, publish that black box ad or have the whole TIDA hearing. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, we in years past we've had to go through that black border thing and have the hearing and that, but by staying under the 5%, we avoid doing all of that.
Yes.
And that's enough of a cushion that'll cover us should something unexpected turn up.
Yes.
Any board members have any comments on this?
Well, I go through a calculation, Mike Tennis here. I don't have a monstrous Excel spreadsheet, but I do have a one-page spreadsheet that pretty much concurs with the estimated numbers that Lauren came up with. And like she said, she was almost on the money last time, and I think my limitations on my my iPhone as to how many digits I can put in may have been the differential.
Because that EAV is a giant number, yeah.
Yes.
So what's the old saying? Close enough for government work. So I guess that's great. So Nikki, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nikki is yes, Christina,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes. Okay, that concludes the open business for this evening. We are going to have an executive to cover two items. The first being from ILCS 120-2, paragraph C, section C, paragraph 21, discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under this act, whether for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual minutes review of the minutes mandated by section 2.06 of the act. And the second one is 5 ILCS 120/2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body. There will be no further action taken once we come back into open session. So may I have a motion to adjourn to executive session, please?
So moved. Dave.
Second, Chris.
Okay. Nikki, can we have a vote, please?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Huh?
Brian.
Yes.
It's gonna answer for you, Brian. I don't know where that came from. Nikki, yes. Christina,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. We are adjourned from the open session at 7:40. Does anybody need a 5-minute break?
It's 7:40.
48.
I'm sorry, 7:48, sorry. Okay, now I'd like to call the regular session of the Fox River Valley Public Library District back into session, October 20th at 8:59. May we have a roll call vote, please? And may we have a roll call to see who's here?
Dave,
Here.
Chris,
Yes, here.
Mike,
Here.
Brian,
Here.
Nikki here, Christina,
Here.
Richard.
Here. There being no other business to conduct tonight, I will entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So adjourned, Chris Evans.
So moved.
So moved, I mean.
Dave, okay,
Dave, seconded.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Now may we have a roll call vote, please?
Dave,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Nikki, yes, Christina,
Yep.
Richard. Richard?
Richard?
Yes. We are now adjourned at 9 o'clock straight up.
We are so adjourned.